The shattered silence. Gyrus Prattler had never known a universe full of light. The stars that had once dazzled the cosmos had long since burned out, leaving only remnants of their ancient glow scattered across the void. The universe, in its old age, had faded into an abyss of darkness. For the Inari, a species that lived on a dying world orbiting a red dwarf, the cosmos had become an unfathomable blackness. The distant memories of the universe's golden age were all that remained, a time when gargantuan starforges illuminated the heavens and supergiants burned brightly in the sky. Those days were long gone, lost to the relentless march of time. Inari civilization had existed for eons, thriving under the dim light of their long-lasting star. But that was all they had ever known. Their star, like every other, was fading. All the others had gone cold, leaving behind only white dwarfs and black holes. For the past 2 quadrillion years, life in the universe had been a quiet, almost sorrowful existence. Nothing new had occurred in countless millennia, and as an astronomer, Gyrus had been tasked with studying the last remnants of a once brilliant universe. His job had become increasingly irrelevant, with fewer and fewer celestial bodies to observe. As he sat in his observation station orbiting Black Dwarf Arrow 53, Gyrus couldn't help but reflect on the futility of his work. It had all seemed pointless. For most of his life, the universe had been still. The once vibrant sky, filled with brilliant supernova and stars of unimaginable size, had become a distant memory. The few stars that remained were dim and far away, too far for any meaningful observation. The great civilizations that had once spread across the galaxy had long since fallen into dust. The universe was dead, or at least that was how it felt. The other scientists on his station had long since given up hope. No one expected anything more. Their research consisted of scanning the faintest flickers of energy, trying to capture the last traces of life in the cosmic sea. Most of their observations were hopelessly mundane. Rogue planets drifting aimlessly through space, black dwarfs fading into obscurity, and white dwarfs too distant to study in any detail. The work was solitary and, at times, overwhelming. There were days when Gyrus couldn't remember why he continued to do it. It was as though the universe itself had surrendered to the inevitable. The light was gone, and only darkness remained. But as he gazed at the empty void from the comfort of his station, something changed. There was a faint flicker on his console. At first, it was barely noticeable, just a speck of light that appeared in the farthest reaches of his sensors. It could have been an anomaly, a random blip caused by the interference from distant stars. But it wasn't. As he adjusted his instruments and focused his telescopic arrays on the signal, he realized it was different. This wasn't some fleeting, dying ember from a distant star. No, this was something far more remarkable. A ship. Gyrus stared at the image on his screen, his heart racing as he processed the data. The object was large, at least twice as massive as the rogue planet that orbited the black dwarf in his system. Its design was unfamiliar. Unlike any craft Gyrus had ever seen before, it seemed to be made of materials not found in any Inari database. Yet it was moving through space with an eerie precision. The object was heading directly toward the black dwarf at the center of the system. If it kept on its current course, it would collide with the rogue planet, and more disturbingly, disrupt Gyrus' station in the process. A sense of urgency overtook him. His station's communication system was designed to transmit on the galactic standard frequencies, the one used by nearly all known species. But this ship was different. The vessel didn't register any standard FTL, faster than light, signals. It was as if the craft was operating on an entirely different level of technology. "Unknown vessel, state your intentions," Gyrus said aloud, his voice steady, though his mind was racing. He waited for several moments, but there was no response. He tried again, his tone firmer this time. "Unknown vessel, respond. What is your purpose here?" Still nothing. The ship continued its approach, seemingly indifferent to the station's presence. Gyrus' mind raced with questions. Who, or what, could be on that ship? And how had it arrived in a universe that was, by all accounts, devoid of life? Was this some kind of galactic anomaly? A ship from an era long past? Or perhaps something else entirely? Something far beyond the understanding of the Inari? In the years that followed, astronomers had become resigned to the fact that the universe had died. No new civilizations had arisen, and there were no signs of intelligent life beyond the few that had managed to survive on isolated planets. The occasional anomaly, a burst of radiation, an unexplainable signal, would spark brief excitement, but all such events had turned out to be false alarms. The universe, it seemed, was a cemetery of dead stars and forgotten worlds. But now this massive, strange vessel was floating toward him, and Gyrus couldn't ignore the possibility that this was something far more important. This could be the breakthrough that had eluded him for centuries. It could be the discovery that could change everything. In a moment of inspiration, Gyrus accessed an old communication system that had been buried deep in the station's archives. An ancient laser communication network that hadn't been used in millennia. It wasn't compatible with the standard FTL systems, but it was his only option. He hoped that whatever or whoever was on the vessel might still understand the signal. With a trembling hand, Gyrus initiated the transmission. He sent out a simple message in Galactic Standard, accompanied by a translation algorithm, hoping that whoever, or whatever, was out there would respond. He wasn't sure what he expected, but a sense of anticipation filled the room as the seconds ticked by. The response came after a brief delay, the signal traveling through the emptiness of space. As the laser pulse reached the vessel, something remarkable happened. The ship's true form became visible. It wasn't the sleek, compact vessel that Gyrus had initially assumed. Instead, the ship revealed itself to be a gargantuan sphere, its surface covered in a lattice of lights that blinked and pulsed like a living organism. It was unlike anything Gyrus had ever seen. It was a beacon. Not just a ship, but a symbol of something far greater. It was ancient and colossal, its surface etched with symbols that defied any understanding. Its purpose was unclear, but one thing was certain. This was not a random object in space. This was a message, a sign of life, perhaps even intelligence, in a universe that had long since forgotten what it meant to be alive. Gyrus sat back, his mind whirling. He had always believed that the universe was dead, that there was nothing left to discover. But now, as the massive vessel pulsed in front of him, he realized that humanity, or whatever had built this ship, had come to light the stars again. This was the beginning of something far greater than he could ever have imagined. In that moment, Gyrus understood the significance of what he had just uncovered. The universe had not died after all. It had merely been waiting for the spark of life to return. The awakening. The massive vessel hovered in space, its enormous, spherical form casting an imposing shadow across the surrounding stars. Gyrus Prattler could barely comprehend what was unfolding before him. He had spent his entire life studying the remnants of the universe's former brilliance, and now, in the final hours of the cosmos' reign, he had discovered something that defied all reason. A gargantuan, ancient ship, brimming with a mystery that only deepened the more he tried to understand it. As the signal pulses continued to reach his station, his mind raced with possibilities. He had known the universe had died, at least in every sense he understood. His telescopic arrays had scanned nothing but the cold remains of long-extinguished stars. The last remnants of civilization were scattered across dead worlds, and even the Inari, with their vast knowledge, could find no answers. They had accepted that silence. But this was not silence. This was a proclamation of life. Something, or someone, was out there, and they had come from beyond the veil of his universe's death. The station's artificial lights flickered as Gyrus sat in the dimly lit control room. The dark silhouette of the sphere, now more clearly visible through his monitors, still pulsated faintly, its lights shimmering like distant stars caught in the grasp of an unknown force. There was no mistaking it now. The ship wasn't just some remnant of an ancient civilization. It was alive in a way that Gyrus had never encountered. He wasn't merely seeing the light of a dying star. He was witnessing the light of something far more profound. The silence of the station felt heavy, oppressive even, as though it itself was holding its breath in anticipation of the events to come. Gyrus had no answers, but he had a job to do. The ship had responded to his message, and now he had to determine if there was more to it, more to the answers it held. Gyrus activated his communication system again, ensuring the frequencies were aligned properly, this time attempting a different approach. The last signal had been basic, a simple request for the vessel to identify itself. But now, with the ship revealing its true form, Gyrus knew the stakes were higher. Whatever this was, it was not an ordinary occurrence. The chances of him surviving the encounter were slim, but what did that matter? The universe had already died, hadn't it? Now, perhaps, there was a chance for something more, a hope for resurrection. He initiated a different kind of transmission, this time sending out a more complex message, one that would encompass not only a greeting but an invitation. He encoded the message to include not only galactic standard but also a few esoteric languages known to the Inari, hoping that the ship might understand the deep, ancient language of the stars. The Inari had once used this method when communicating with other species eons ago, in the days before their isolation. Seconds felt like hours as the silence enveloped him, only the soft beeping of his station's instruments marking the passing of time. It wasn't until the transmission had reached the ship that something extraordinary happened. The vast vessel, this living monument, shifted. The spherical structure began to rotate, and its lights intensified, spreading out like the tendrils of some great cosmic organism. Gyrus's breath caught in his throat as the ship seemed to respond, sending a burst of energy back toward his station. The energy wasn't violent but resonated in waves, sending ripples through the space around him. It was as though the ship had heard his call and was responding in kind. And then, as if from nowhere, a voice spoke. It was not an audible voice in the traditional sense, but it was as clear as day, reverberating through Gyrus's mind. The tone was deep and resonant, ancient and powerful, like the sound of cosmic winds sweeping across distant galaxies. The voice was not of a species Gyrus recognized, and yet, somehow, it spoke to him as if they had known each other for millennia. We are the ones who remember the stars, and the stars remember us. You, the Inari, are the ones who are awake. Gyrus froze. The voice continued, its presence settling deep in his thoughts, enveloping him in its mysterious weight. Your time is fleeting, but there are those who have transcended. The cycle of death does not need to be the end. We have found you, Inari. You are the last of the living, but you need not remain alone. Gyrus felt the weight of the words settle in his chest. The last of the living. He had heard those words before. It was a sentiment shared by many species in the wake of the universe's decay, but now it was pointed directly at him. His station, his people, his planet. Gyrus had thought they were the remnants of a long-forgotten existence. But this ship, this voice from beyond, was offering something more. The ship's message was not just a signal. It was a bridge, a call to something greater. They were offering a path forward, and it wasn't simply a path of survival. It was a path to renewal, a resurrection. For the first time in countless millennia, Gyrus began to feel a flicker of hope. His profession, once useless, had become something more. He was no longer just an astronomer who observed the dead remnants of a universe gone dark. He was now part of something that could breathe life back into the very fabric of space itself. Before Gyrus could respond, the ship's voice resonated once more. You seek the return of the light. It is within your grasp, but the cost will be great. Are you willing to walk the path we have set for you? The question hung in the air, and Gyrus could feel the weight of it. What was he being asked? What was the cost? For eons, the universe had stood still, and the Inari had accepted their fate. But now, with the appearance of this ship, with this entity reaching out from the void, the universe felt alive again. The universe was not dead. It was waiting. Gyrus took a deep breath, his hands trembling as he gripped the controls of the station. There was no way back now. He had already taken the first step when he sent the transmission. And now, the ship had responded. There was no going back from this. Whatever this was humanity's chance. This was the spark that could reignite the universe. He stood up, the weight of the decision pressing down on him, and said aloud, more to himself than to the ship, "Yes, we are ready. Show us the way." The lights from the ship pulsed brighter in response, as if it were acknowledging his decision. In that moment, Gyrus knew that the universe, once thought dead, was about to awaken once more, and humanity, no longer just the Inari, was about to reclaim its place in the cosmos. The path of light. The silence that had once permeated the universe seemed to grow thicker as Gyrus Prattler stood before the ancient ship's communication console. The moment he had spoken those words, "Yes, we are ready. Show us the way," the room around him felt as though it had shifted, becoming something more. The energy from the ship pulsed again, its massive form still floating in the void like an ancient sentinel. Gyrus felt as though he had just unlocked a door to a dimension of possibilities that transcended time itself. For the first time in what seemed like an eternity, Gyrus was filled with a sense of purpose. His entire career, his life, had been centered around the study of the dead universe, of dim stars, fading remnants, and lifeless worlds. But now, it was as though everything he had ever known was being rewritten. The universe was alive again. He had been given a glimpse into something beyond the comprehension of his species, beyond anything he could have imagined. The voice from the ship echoed once more, its resonance deep and profound, vibrating through Gyrus's chest as if speaking directly to his soul. "The light you seek is not a star that can be born from the remnants of a dying world. It is a power older than the stars themselves, a force that has been hidden within the fabric of space, waiting for those who still remember how to seek it." Gyrus swallowed, his heart pounding in his chest. He understood the weight of the words. The light was not simply the creation of new stars. It was something more, something ancient, perhaps even cosmic. But where was this light? How could they reach it, harness it, and bring it back to the universe? The ship seemed to be offering him something that no one had ever dared to dream of, the chance to reverse the decay of the cosmos, to restore life to the galaxies, to reignite the stars. "You will not walk this path alone, Gyrus Prattler. There are others who are waiting, others who have lived through the silence, and who have kept the knowledge alive. But the path is perilous, and the journey will test your species in ways you cannot yet understand. Are you willing to travel beyond the known?" The voice's tone was not one of judgment, but of ancient wisdom. It wasn't asking if Gyrus was ready. It was asking if humanity, as a whole, could endure what was coming. Gyrus hesitated for only a moment. He had already come this far, and there was no going back now. His entire life had been devoted to exploring the stars, uncovering their mysteries, but now the very fabric of reality was unfolding before him. The universe had faded into a graveyard of forgotten light, and yet here was the chance to defy the inevitable, to rekindle the flame that had once burned so brightly. He spoke again, his voice steadier this time, filled with determination. "We are ready. Humanity will walk this path." The ship responded with a brilliant flare of light, a beam that shot from the center of the spherical vessel, cutting through the blackness of space like a sword of pure energy. Gyrus watched in awe as the light grew, expanding outward in rippling waves, illuminating the darkness around them. The black dwarf and rogue planets in his system faded into the background, swallowed by the brilliance that now filled the void. The stars themselves seemed to shimmer and pulse in response to the ship's light. As the light spread, Gyrus felt his station shake, not from physical force, but from an energy that reverberated through every atom of his body. The ancient ship, its mysterious latticework of lights and energy, had become a beacon, a guiding light in the vast emptiness of space. It was as though the ship itself was calling the universe back to life. The voice spoke again, its tone now softer, yet filled with a quiet urgency. The path you must walk leads to the core of the universe itself. You will travel to the nexus of light, a place where time and space converge. It is here that the power of creation lies. But beware, for the path is fraught with dangers that no civilization has yet overcome. You will face the tests of the ancients, trials that will challenge your body, your mind, and your spirit. If you fail, you will become part of the silence once more. Gyrus's mind raced. The nexus of light. What was this place? A convergence of time and space. It sounded impossible. And yet, everything that had happened so far, everything he had learned, pointed to the fact that this was not just a dream or a myth. The ship, this entity, was leading him to something real, something tangible. And if he and humanity were to succeed, they would need to embrace the unknown, the impossible. Your journey begins now. Prepare yourself, Gyrus Prattler. Prepare humanity. The universe is waiting for you to reignite it. The transmission ended, and the room fell silent once again. But this time, the silence was different. It wasn't oppressive. It was full of potential, of a new beginning. Gyrus stood motionless for several moments, his mind reeling. He had always known that the universe was vast, mysterious, and full of wonder, but he had never imagined that he, of all people, would be at the center of the greatest revelation in the history of his species. The journey ahead would not be easy. The tests that lay before them were unknown, and the risks were unimaginable. But humanity had always thrived in the face of adversity. It was part of their nature. They were resilient. And now, they would be given the chance to prove it on a cosmic scale. He turned and made his way to the communication center, ready to send a message back to the homeworld, to the leaders of the Inari and the scattered colonies. They needed to know what was coming. They needed to prepare for the trials ahead. The universe, as they had known it, was no longer just a place of death. It was a canvas, waiting to be painted with the colors of new stars, new life, and new possibilities. As Gyrus prepared the transmission, he couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement, tempered by the weight of responsibility. This was no longer just about him. This was about humanity, about all the life that still existed in the quiet corners of the universe. It was about reigniting the stars. Gyrus to homeworld, he said, his voice firm. I have received a message from an ancient ship. We are about to embark on a journey that will change everything. The universe is not dead. It is waiting for us to reignite it. Prepare humanity. The path ahead is fraught with challenges, but we will face them together. We are ready. The message was sent, and Gyrus turned to look at the ship once more. Its light still pulsed, steady and strong. The universe was vast, but it was not lifeless. The stars were about to burn again. And this time, humanity would lead the way.